Welcome back. I thought we could build on our previous character in which we've retrofitted an older item of clothing with Marvelous Designer onto the Genesis figure and turn that into something we can render out and essentially go through some of the principles that we've gone through in this part before we go and move on to the final part, which is post-production in Photoshop. So just so that we have something that we can actually work with in Photoshop, let's go and turn this into something, that looks better than it currently does. So we have a fitted shirt, we have an interesting pose. I think she needs something like a skirt, and we need to give her an expression, and we need to think about the framing a little bit, and perhaps some hair, and then a bit of lighting. So this is always my favorite part in Daz Studio, to literally just be creative and roll with it and see how a portrait actually comes out. I haven't prepared at all for this, so it's going to be interesting to see what comes out. I think I'll start first of all by saving my scene, because I've got something here that I don't want to lose. So I'll go and create myself a new, we've got our custom library called new project. I'm going to go and maybe put it into Daz scenes here and call this, it'll be a proper scene, and I will call this retrofit. Perhaps I will spell it properly this time. And I will use everything here. I'm not going to compress the file. This is a new feature that has just been introduced in Daz Studio 4.20. When you save a scene file, this dialog never used to come up. Now it does, so that we can be a little bit more granular as to what we'd like to include in our scenes. So welcome change. Daz Studio changes and is updated all the time. So there you go. Let's maybe start by giving her some bottoms here. Perhaps a skirt, perhaps some shorts. Let's head over to wardrobe, and if there's anything that needs to be adjusted, I will go and do this either in Hexagon or in ZBrush. How about these leather trousers here, this trending social trousers? Let's try that. Double click to fit. They should snap on, and look, this is kind of interesting. We have a good drape on the bottom here, but our top doesn't quite fit anymore. Interesting. Let's have a look at the Foxy striped shirt and see if there's something like a morph that just makes the bottom a little bit wider. I'm not looking for anything drastic, but if there isn't, then we're just going to go and make this ourselves. Or we're going to redrape this in Marvelous Designer. We could also do that. Let's take care of that. So under Actor here, with my Foxy shirt selected, I will have a look under Adjustments. So we have back hip, back top, cleavage, front, shoulder. Expand all is probably not what we want, because that'll literally expand everything. It kind of works. Yeah, it's not what I'm looking for. Hip wider, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Hip wider, there we go. That is what I want. It's just not as wide as I would perhaps like it to be. So we can either get rid of this when fixing poke through, or we can just go and try to override that slider here and say maximum is maybe 200 or 500 even, like I've shown you earlier. And if we do that, that's not gonna be good. There's this big bulge here that we can see here. I'm not sure about this. Yeah, I don't think I like this much. Well, let's see if we can just go import the pants into Marvelous Designer and just go and drape this again. Or we could go into Hexagon and just try and move these pieces out. Or we can go into ZBrush and try to sculpt them out. I'm not sure. Well, let's try and use Hexagon for this. Just because it's free and everyone has access to it, so I think that's just fair. Send to Hexagon. In Hexagon, I should see all my items appear bit by bit. This might take some time, so patience, kids. There we go. Thankfully, we don't have hair right now. We need to select our stripy shirt here. There it is. And I think I'm going to go and use the edge selection and try to select something at the bottom here. If I click L, then Hexagon is going to try and select that whole bottom ring loop there. That's exactly what I want. My manipulator should be set to selection. I'm going to enable soft selection here and make that slightly less, so that the area that needs to be expanded is selected here. Kind of like this. It's going to be a little bit of a problem on this side here. Maybe radius will help to bring that down. No, radius is going to be okay. Righty, let's see if we can go and scale this up. So with my universal manipulator tool selected, I'm going to go and see if I can select that little yellow cube and left click and drag it. Yeah, that's going to turn into a skirt here. That's not what I want. Let's go and increase the softness. Go undo that and just increase my radius a bit further up. Left click and drag and see if this does what I want. No, it doesn't actually. It doesn't really work that well. It doesn't really work that well. It looks like I'm going to have to go and use a different approach and not use the edge loop approach. I might do it a little bit like so, but I will try and use face selection and soft selection to bring out some of these passages here. This might be better with sculpting, but since I said I'm going to use Hexagon, I will totally do that. So I'll just select this part here, make the soft selection radius a little bit smaller, and left click and drag this out. So there's also going to be the smoothing modifier in a minute that we could ask, could you please look at the trousers instead of the person, because we don't really need to have it collide with the person. Since Marvelous Designer did such an excellent drape, we don't need for it to collide with the figure anymore. And each of these has a soft selection applied, so that's kind of neat here. With these types of things, it really is all about patience. Some people have more patience than others. But I really appreciate how Hexagon is just so well integrated here into Daz Studio that we can literally just do these things and it doesn't cost us a penny to do this. There, I don't think we're going to see much of the back, but I think this is already enough for what I wanted to do. I think that's already pretty cool. So let me go and send this back. Gotta go and accept this here. Go back to object selection mode, and then I'll head over to File, Send to Daz Studio. In Daz Studio, we're going to get another morph, and once again, very important, we're going to go and select the reverse deformations option here, because now we have multiple deltas on top of one another. Morph created successfully. This is now under on the Foxy striped shirt. Under morphs, we've got this one thing called Hexagon morph. Left click and drag on it, and there we go. Perfect. It's sorted it out. We're going to go and have a look at the smoothing modifier here in a moment. I'm going to go and alt select this. I'll go and rename this so that Hexagon morph is a little bit more descriptive under label here. This is where you have to change whatever this says. Name is something that's used under the hood. Label is what we see in the list here. So I'm going to call this waist fix. And I might just go and copy this and paste it into the name as well so that they're both the same. Path I'm going to be okay with. There. Before I dial this in, let me go and tell the Foxy striped shirt that the mesh smoothing, the collision item here, isn't none. It'll now be the trending social pants. So usually this would be the Genesis figure, but we don't need that because it's not colliding with the Genesis figure. It's now interfering with the trending social pants. So let me go and select those and just those. And this is only going to work because we fitted this in Marvelous Designer. It hasn't quite worked as well as I had hoped. It's not getting rid of it completely, but thankfully we have our waist fix morph, so that in conjunction with the smoothing modifier has now gotten rid of pretty much all the poke through. That is seriously cool. I think there's one tiny bit over here that it hasn't modified, but that's okay. We can just go to mesh smoothing and then try the smoothing iterations from 2 to 5 or the collision iterations from 3 to 10. Wait a second, and then it's kind of, yeah, it's got problem with this area here. Let me try smoothing iterations of 10, and then that's gone. It still has a minor issue, so I would probably go back into Hexagon and just drag that bit out again. But we know how to do this. We're perfectionists, so yeah, I might just leave it on the defaults. And if you wanted to change this, you know what to do. Go back into Hexagon, drag this bit out. I'm going to go and crack on with this render here. It's very unlikely that we're going to see it. So we've got a top, we've got bottoms. Let's go and have a look at an expression and some accessories before we look at hair. So this isn't even a custom head morph. So let's make that happen first. So maybe since we've used the Olympia body, perhaps we're also going to use the Olympia face. So that'll be under head, people, and I'll just search for Olympia because that's kind of what I'm what I'm thinking, we're just going to leave that intact. Yeah, there we go. You can use Olympia with someone else. So if you wanted to have kind of 50% Olympia, and we'll use 50% of somebody else, maybe Bridget. I don't know what that's going to look like. Yeah, interesting. Or Edie, 50% Olympia, 50% Edie. Yeah. Or Honey, 50% of her, 50% of Olympia. And see, if you do too much, you'll see that the face very much distorts. So that's not good. If you use things that complement one another, that's perfect. Maybe we'll do a pie, maybe. Also not bad. Let's do that. That kind of complements one another. So 50% Olympia, 50% pie, or pay rather. There, perfect. Let's work on an expression next. Let's see what we have in our arsenal. We could use the face controls that I've talked about. Or since we're using Genesis 8.1, let's have a look at the Good Vibes pack. Good Vibes, or, hang on, let's try My Attitude Expressions by Jay Wolf. I like it. This might be nice. That fits the gesture she's making, as in, you know, I'm up for the challenge, bring it on type thing. I like it. Maybe we'll use that. And this is kind of, you know, no, that's too grumpy. I like it. Let's leave that. Perfect. She has still got my stream safe textures on, so I'm going to go and put a different Genesis 8.1 skin material on there. That is under Materials. Closing the poses down again. And on 8.1, both 8.0 and 8.1 textures will work. Let's see, I could use the Olympia textures. Let's just stick with Olympia through and through. Let's go and do that under Materials. I'll stick with Iray here. And there's this one here that's called Olympia All Maps. So I'm going to go and double click that. That should swap out the skin shader. There we go. That does this. We have that. Let's take a look at, we could take a look at hair next, but I'm thinking I'm going to go and use camera next so that we leave hair until the very last. Use the camera, and then we'll have a look at lighting, and then we'll do hair at the very end. Let's do that. So I'm thinking something like a square upper body shot, a bit like this, maybe even something. Yeah, I think we're going to use bring the hands in so that we can at least see our handiwork, something like this. Let's go and switch my aspect frame on. So this is going to be the square framing, and we're almost kind of there with the framing. I just want to change the focal length a bit and just zoom in a tad. I'm going to go and create a new camera, copying my perspective view here. And with the camera selected, I will go to the Parameters tab under Camera, and I'll go and choose a slightly longer focal length. It's something like 120, and then I'll zoom out like that. I'm not entirely sure about about where the head's pointing. I'm almost thinking, yeah, I like the body framing this way, but I think the head's probably going to turn more towards the camera. Just so that I don't screw this up, I'm going to go to General and Translation here with the camera still selected, and left click and drag all these properties so that they're all selected. All selected, and then I go and right click and choose Lock Selected Properties. And when I do that, these little lock icons appear on every item, and that means if I go and accidentally move my viewport, nothing moves because my camera is locked. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've done this, that I've had the perfect framing, and then I thought, hey, this is my perspective view, move the viewport, and then of course, you know, my perfect camera framing gets totally right roll screwed up. So let's make sure we're locking that in. Doesn't mean we can't unlock it and make changes to the camera, but you know, for now we're going to leave it like this. Let's go and select our Genesis figure with Power Pose. I'm going to go and have a quick look at the head here. I'm going to go and switch my universal manipulator off and just go to this one here, the node selection tool, just so that the manipulator itself goes away. So that lets me now go and figure out a perfect look for where I want her to look, essentially. I could point each eye directly at the camera. I'm going to dispense with that. And in face, I might just go and close the mouth a little bit more. Well, that didn't work. Maybe I'm going to go and try to use Puppeteer for this and blend between this and a neutral expression. I should have really grabbed one when I had the chance, but that's okay if I don't. Maybe this pose pack that I had here by J. Wolf that sometimes has a 0 expression here. So I'm going to go and dial that in now. That's her in her neutral position. So I'll go back to Puppeteer and put another dot on the wheel here. And now with preview, I'll be able to blend between here and there. And I'm thinking maybe just something a little bit less would have been better. So this is what we had before, just a little bit less. Tone that down just a tad. This is what I want. I thought maybe it's just the jaw that I could adjust there, but it wasn't working too well. But just like that, you know, dial it down a notch. Perfect. I'm loving it already. Let's go and Control S to save over my previous scene. Let's have a look at lighting, and then we're going to have a look at hair. I'm going to start with a single click product that I'll talk more about later. I'll find it under render settings. I'm going to use the click and render IBL set from Cake 1, and I'll just use the first one here. Double click and see what it looks like. Now this doesn't mean I'm going to use the background. I might recreate that in Photoshop, but just to get a preview of what the lighting is going to look like, this is a very nice way to get started and just to get an impression of where is this picture going and are we in principle happy with this. This might be a little bit hot, so I'm going to go and switch this over to Iray so that I could see a more accurate preview here. Let this cook a second, and once again, disregarding the background, I think we're kind of there. I think I might go for something like a darker background. There are some presets with a darker background here. It's kind of very floody fill from the front, but we do get some catch lights in the eyes. That's nice. We also get some separation there. It's a bit like so many of these one-click products. You just have to go through a few and then see, is this what you're looking for or is it not? So that might be nice. I like the pink side light that we have here. I think it might be a little bit hot, so a little bit strong. So I might turn this down, the intensity down a bit. But in principle, I think I'm happy with this. So as I said, the background isn't going to be rendered. I'm going to replace that with the flat color in Photoshop. I might go and just tone this down a bit under environment. Intensity, I'm going to make this maybe 0.5 just to have a quick nosy around that. That's a bit too dark, so 0.7. And we're kind of there. So the shirt is still the old shader that isn't actually an Iray shader. So if I wanted to convert that, I could do this as well, but I think it looks okay. I might just go and leave it. I could also add something like a bump map to it, so that would add a little bit of a pattern definition to it. But I'm going to go and leave it as it is. This is a good enough render to get us started here. Before I forget, I'm going to go and switch off the draw dome here so that the dome is not drawn. And this is now our figure. Now I have something that I've just noticed, that is that the light that she gets from the back is so strong that it actually goes and shines through her. So this is a phenomenon called subsurface scattering, and sometimes when a figure gets too much light from one side, it literally shines right through them. And there's usually an option that lets you disable this in the shader, or you can also go and put a dummy object into the point that is annoying. So I think the mouth area wouldn't be as bright usually as it is right now. So let's see if our skin material has a subsurface scattering option that we can disable. I think Olympia is also a bit chunky, so I wonder if she's actually base resolution. Yes, she is. Look at that. I didn't know that. Let's go switch high resolution on our Genesis character. There we go. Less chunky. Much nicer. But there's still that pink glow in her throat here. So let's see if there's an option. If I go back to my materials, and we had Olympia, didn't we? Thankfully, we have so many other skin shaders to work with that, you know, it's not a problem to swap her out. You're usually looking for something like SSS, but it looks like we don't seem to have that option. I don't want to go through every surface in the shader. I might just go and use a different material preset here. Maybe Sienna by Combe Jackson. Let's do that. Then she'll have freckles. I do like freckles. So let's say Feminine Sienna HD. Here it is, full HD apply. Let's go do that. Double click, and so this is better. This is better. There's less subsurface scattering going on. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit on the ears and on fingers, so that looks very natural when you have a strong light behind the figure. And now I'm wondering if my light is okay. Maybe my light is a bit too strong. I might go give a bit of makeup here, slightly more contrasty lips, and perhaps also a bit of gloss on the lips. Hours of fun, hours and hours of fun. Are we happy with the makeup here? Let's go put some more makeup on. It is a fashion shoot after all. Oh, no, not that. Maybe less. Less is more. Yeah, I'm not sure that goes with the blue. Let's try this. Yeah, we can probably live with that. We're not seeing her nails, do we? We do, don't we? Yeah, let's go put some nail varnish on as well. See how the perspective changed if you just look at the head shape between the camera and the perspective view. See how these features change? So this is a very different facial shape to that. So this is a much fuller, rounder face, and I see more of her cheeks than I do see with the perspective view. And that is because I have a longer lens on the camera than I do have on the perspective view. So it's nice as a preview, but for the full portrait, I always recommend you use a longer lens so that facial features do come out nicer that way. Maybe double click for the black nails. We're looking at the nail color. Yeah, there we go. Nicely done. Okay, good stuff. I'm happy. Let's put hair and some accessories on it. Every portrait kind of needs accessories. We don't really see the wrists here, but maybe we have some rings that we want to put on the fingers, and we want to have maybe a necklace or maybe some earrings or something like that. So let's go ahead and save our scene and have a look at hair. If you find like you're spending a long time with these things, then that's perfectly okay. That is just the time it takes to be creative, as well as a bit art directory, as well as very technical about this. Let's try the curls here. Curl me hair. See what that looks like. We're probably going to have to bring her down a little bit, or dolly away from her a little bit. And it's also not uncommon that you have to go through various outfits and various types of hair to just see, hey, is this what I'm actually looking for? I think curl me hair is fantastic. Let's do this. Right click on it and we'll pick a different hair color. And we have accessories here, so this could match the blue shirt here, something like a light blue curly set here. I think more like a brunette would be nice. That would go better with her hair, or maybe a redhead. That would go well with the freckles. That could kind of work. I'm thinking more brunette, maybe even black. That's nice. I do like that contrast. And I'm still thinking, now that the skin tone is a little bit lighter, I wonder if we should just make the light a little bit darker again. It's just, you know, with the Olympia one, it was working, but maybe 0.5 wouldn't have, yeah, that's still a little dark. I'm thinking 0.6 then. I do like it. I'm going to go and move the camera down just a little bit. So under parameters, just so that we don't cut her crown off quite that much. So in camera, we've locked all these transform parameters. Left click and drag onto all of them. Right click, lock, unlock selected properties. And I'm just going to go and move this down. Just like that. I might even dolly out just so that I have a little bit more background here. And that's our portrait. A little bit further up. There we go. I think we're going to go lock that in. Skin tone is debatable. You can spend hours and hours on this. I'm going to go and lock these things again and add some accessories. I think that's another thing that I like to do. Lock, select the properties with my Genesis figure selected again. Let's head over to accessories. See what we have. I don't think glasses will work. I don't think earrings in this case will work either. But something... We could give a face mask. I mean, you know, we are living in COVID times. How about these ones here, the biosafety goggles? Let's try that. Will that work? I mean, why not? It is a bit of fun. I think it might distract a little bit of from her face. So we could adjust those, where there's probably materials that we can put on this as well. Let's not use that then. Let's use maybe something else. Let's try the face mask, green face mask. Then we don't see her smiling anymore. We spent all this time getting the expression right. We don't want to cover up 70% of it. It would be a shame to hide that face. Let's not use that. How about the spiky glasses here? Let's try that. Will that work? Will that interfere in any way with the curls? No, I think this is going to be nice. Great! So we've got good glasses now. Let's go with a necklace or something, just so that we accentuate this area a little bit. And then we'll see if there's rings that we can use for this process here. I'm going to go and untick the filter by content here, just to see if there's anything else that might tickle my fancy. Do I have any ring? Jeweled, excellent rings. That's good. So we maybe on the left-hand side. Let's have 2 on the left and maybe 1 on the right. That's some rings. We could even put a nasal ring in here. A nose ring. Let's do that. Has it worked? Nope, nose ring is absent. Nose ring is not on the figure. So I could position that, but I think I might dispense with it. I might just go use a necklace. Had it snapped into place, I might have used it, but I guess it didn't. Let's look for a necklace. Chandrani necklace. This isn't for Genesis 8, I don't think. We can try it out anyway. Let's go and try it out. Oh, that's where that is. Sometimes when this happens, it's just not fitted to the figure. So I could either delete it and load it again, or right-click on it and say fit the Chandrani necklace to my Genesis 8 figure, parent to the target, so that it just goes in here. Yeah, I thought this was maybe a Genesis 2 item. Let me see if that works. So that's auto-fitting again. It's an older item. I'm not sure if that's going to find the right position. It has. Look at that, it has. I think it might be a bit much. So that's where AutoFit has done a really good job now. So I've got to say, I would probably use ZBrush to put this slightly closer to her, just so that we don't see this gap and this shadow here. I don't think it's the right style. Let's go and get rid of it. Let's try something else. Maybe the stylized beads here. Let's try that. That I think is made for Genesis 8. There we go, that's neat. Perfection. I think that's our render done. That's our render done. We can work with this. We can work with this. I can go and render this out, and then we can look in Photoshop how we'd replace the background. And we also have our earlier renders from the scene on the beach, and I'll show you how to do a bit of post-production on this. Let's do that. Let me go. I'm kind of happy with the lighting here. I'm going to go and switch Iray off, just so that we're all on the same page in regards to render settings here. And also, just before I kick it off, Control S, I might go and render this out at, say, 3000 by 3000 as a square aspect ratio. Under progressive rendering, I'm going to disable the render quality. I'm going to use 1000 samples. That should be okay. Filtering, I'm going to go and enable the denoiser. First of all, make it available, then enable it down here. And that should be that. One other thing under environment, I'm not going to render the dome, so that the one-click light product that I had will not be the background. I'm going to go and replace that in Photoshop. Control S to save this one more time. Command R to render this out, and we'll just see how long this takes on my hardware. There it is, denoiser's kicked in. This is all looking handsome, I say. We didn't do any depth of field in this case. We could add that, but I think we're going to be perfectly fine with this. I'm thinking something like, nice comic-y in the background. We'll see what we come up with. There we go. It's already got 150 iterations in about a minute, so that's not going to take all that long. I'm going to go and see you in the next part, where we're going to go and post-produce this in Photoshop, and also going to have a look at our previous render that we made with the surfer scene. Key to, just so to my final thoughts about this, key to success here is repetition. Know what's in your content library. If you don't, just try something out and see if it doesn't work. It's okay. You just delete it, you discard it. And the more you do it, the more you'll get into the habit of, oh, I haven't checked this, and why doesn't this look good? And you just keep doing it, and you just follow that pattern, and eventually you'll have so much practice that this really grows on you. And you will find yourself jumping around from one thing to another. So like classic example, camera setup, then you do the lighting. Now you change the skin tone. Now the lighting needs to be changed. Well, that may have an influence on the camera, and that might require more lights, and you put that in, and you change your mind about the skin tone or the clothing. And, you know, one thing influences the other, and you might find yourself going around in circles. That's perfectly normal. That's just what we need to do in order to achieve our goal. Practice, and I'll see you in the next episode.